Hello YouTube, time for some Snap Talk. So today's topic comes from Taylorhead, who writes, thought of another topic you might do, the issues creators have to work around. PS4 publishing, Xbox sound issues, and what I think was a huge issue, the enemy AI working on custom geo. If that alone was fixed, imagine the verticality mappers could do. Alright, thanks Taylorhead, that was a great topic suggestion, and that's going to bring us to Snap Talk Episode 5, Issues Creators Have to Work Around. So I don't know about the Xbox sound issues specifically. I haven't encountered those. I know that with PlayStation 4, I've had times where the sound just cuts out completely, so maybe that's just for every platform, but certainly on PlayStation. And yeah, definitely, as far as enemy AI not working on custom geo, I totally get that. For anyone who doesn't know, if you have, if the demons aren't physically touching like the grid floor, then they can't navigate. So like if you have a blocking volume that's suspended up in the sky, the demons will just basically stand there, unless they're the ones that have like the ranged weapons, so like they can still like shoot at you. So you can put like a mancubus up on like a ledge and you can still fire at the player, but if you put like a Hell Knight up there, he's just gonna stand there. So that's just something you got to take into account when you design your map. Just be aware of these sort of things, and it can be frustrating, of course, for somebody who just doesn't know about certain limitations. But yeah, I definitely agree. If you could have demons navigate on the blocking volumes, that would certainly open up a new dimension of potential game modes and all sorts of neat things. But one thing that definitely resonates with me is the PS4 publishing issues. Oh boy. So I'm just going to talk about some of the, as far as issues creators have to work around, I'm just going to sort of talk about some of the things I personally experienced. And if anybody has anything else they'd like to add in the comments, feel free. But yeah, the PS4 publishing bug, that is the biggest one right there. What I've basically noticed from that is if you have a network that is above, maybe 30%, if your memory and resources are above like 30% of your map, you just can't upload it. So one thing you can do is like what B80 Fluppy does, which is just basically build these small arena maps that don't take up much memory, like deathmatch and stuff like that, and just publish those. Or what you could also do is just start doing collaborations with other people, where maybe you start building the map on your PlayStation 4 and then upload it about a quarter of the way done, and then just let other people finish it. Or you can do what I do, which is I just get a second copy of Doom on another platform and build it on that other platform. Because here's one thing you can do if you have a PlayStation and you want to, say you got a PlayStation profile where you've already got a bunch of maps under your profile name and you just want to keep all those maps there. One thing you can do is publish a blank map from your PlayStation account, upload it from your alternate account, like for me it'd be on Xbox, and then I just build the map up all the way on Xbox. Once it's finished, I re-upload it, then I download it from my PlayStation account, and then just publish it from my PlayStation account. Because even though you can't build up a map from beginning to end on PlayStation and publish it, you can download other people's maps that are already fully built and just republish them. I don't know why it works that way. If anybody has any ideas, feel free to share them. But it does work. I have observed that strategy will work if you want to build up, if you want to keep building maps and still have them and still be credited as the original author in all these new maps, you just got to build it on another platform. And I understand a lot of people aren't necessarily willing to do that because, for one thing, you might not have another platform that you can do that with. Like maybe you don't have a PC that can run Doom, or you don't have an Xbox, in that case, you're really sort of limited. But if you do, I would recommend just buying another copy of the game. As much as it sucks to think about giving Bethesda more money because they gave you a bad product for PlayStation, if you're going to get a lot of enjoyment out of it and a lot of use out of it, it's worth getting a second copy. Because you can get a used copy of Doom for like $20. And if you're going to get lots of use out of it, then hey, I mean, compare that to spending all this money on other games. You know, you do come out ahead eventually. So that's something to consider. It does work. But yeah, the PS4 publishing issue is just a mess. Another thing that I've experienced that's problematic is just those logic errors that seem to show up all the time for no reason. I think we've all encountered that. I used to actually care about that when it happened and try to figure out, like, what is wrong with my logic? What did I do wrong to cause this logic error? Eventually, you just figure out that these logic errors just sort of show up randomly, whether your logic is quote-unquote good or not. It's basically just a bug. Nothing you can do about it. But what I do recommend doing is, if that happens, instead of trying to worry about how to fix it, just close out your map and just open a new file. I just exit out of the map and just open up a different save file from earlier, and then just keep on going. Most of the time, that same logic bug, it won't reoccur. I mean, sometimes it will reoccur, but it doesn't always reoccur at the same time. So, like when I was building up antivirus, I kept getting a logic errors for like my helicopter propeller blades, or rotor blades rather. And I would just close out the map and then just open it up, and then the logic error wouldn't show up again for a long while, and then it would show up again randomly at some other time, and I'd just keep going back and reopening the map. The key to doing that, though, is you want to save frequently and have multiple save files. That way you don't have to like lose too much progress, right? Just save frequently, often, keep multiple files. And by the way, one way you can tell if your PlayStation map is able to be uploaded, if you're doing things on PlayStation, is when you look at your save file, next to the name, there should be two icons. One is like a disk, and then one is like a cloud, and they'll be they'll be illuminated. If the disk, I think, obviously represents like if the map is saved onto your hard drive, and then the cloud, what it essentially represents is that your map can be uploaded onto the network. So whether or not you're able to publish your map really depends on whether or not that cloud icon is illuminated. If it's not illuminated, you're not going to be able to upload your map, essentially. And if it is illuminated, then you're going to be able to publish it. And that's just something I've noticed. Again, I'm no guru here, so if anybody has a precise explanation for how that system works and why it works the way it does, go ahead and share it. I'm just expressing what I've observed, which is that you want to have that cloud illuminated if you're going to publish. And if you're building up a map on PlayStation and you see that only the disk icon is illuminated and not the cloud, you need to stop, because whatever you continue to build, you're not going to be able to upload. And that's something to keep an eye out for. Another issue I've had in the past and kind of in the present is getting multiplayer to function properly. So the first thing, obviously, you don't want to have your map, you don't want to disable the network limitations, because then once you do that, it's automatically stuck in single player mode and there's nothing you can do about it. But another thing I've sort of observed over time is that if your map includes sub-objectives for like the HUD or something like that, if you have sub-objectives, that can cause multiplayer to crash when you load the game. Another thing that can cause multiplayer to crash is if you disable the bob and rotate for the weapons. So I feel like I still don't have a full grasp on that because I've yet to be able to publish a fully functional multiplayer map recently, because I keep accidentally doing one of these things that, like with Psychotron, I accidentally had the HUD thing that ruined the multiplayer, and then with Antivirus, I accidentally had disabled the bob and rotate for a weapon. And the weird thing is, you can't just delete that logic or delete the weapon and just redo it with it different, because it's sort of like once you commit the sin of checking a certain box or doing a certain set of logic that crashes the multiplayer, somehow it just the map is forever tainted and you're screwed. So yeah, again, another reason to just keep multiple saves and just be very mindful of that kind of stuff, because what I've observed is that is one way to get multiplayer to not work, is by having those two things. But another issue with multiplayer that some people struggle with, I think I've mostly gotten it down, is the whole player psychology aspect of it, and just sort of I shouldn't really say player psychology, but more of just making sure that your logic is set up to work with multiple people. Because I've had it before where you're playing multiplayer, you run through a doorway, and the door locks behind you, but then the other player is locked out of the room. So you just want to keep that in mind when you're setting up your logic. Just keep in mind you're going to have multiple people running around doing things. So don't set up your logic in such a way that it's only going to work in single player. It's not hard to do, but you just have to be mindful of it. So just don't forget that when you're building your map, the logic needs to work in multiplayer. So, and that is also, another issue to work around is, of course, testing for multiplayer. And Snapmap doesn't make this easy by any means with the way the lobby system works, because it's hard just to get somebody to join into your map. And it's also sort of a dick move if they don't know what is in store for them, because you may be getting somebody to play a potentially broken map, and they're not aware of that. They're thinking they're going to play just a fun map and have a good time, when really you've got them there to do troubleshooting. If they're not on board with that, it's kind of a dick move to do, to get somebody to do that. So I would say just try to communicate to the other players ahead of time that, yeah, this is going to be just troubleshooting, so that you're not wasting anybody's time. But yeah, finding people to troubleshoot maps with you is a challenge in and of itself. So best thing to do is just reach out to people on the Discord and just, hey, anybody got a couple of minutes to test out a map with me real quick? And people are usually pretty friendly. One of the biggest issues I've experienced also with making maps really has nothing to do with bugs or logic or anything to do with the map itself. One of the biggest issues that I think most people have is that sometimes an author will just sort of lose interest in their own map, right? They'll get that sort of writer's block version that applies to Snapmap, where they painted themselves into a corner and they just don't know where to go from there. They got half a map done, and you're just like, where do I go with this map? I don't know what I'm doing anymore. And I think that comes from just sort of not planning things out ahead of time. You always want to have sort of at least, what I always do is, before I even start building a map, I'll have a rough draft in my mind of what generally do I want this map to look like? What kind of themes am I going for? Are there any sort of special mechanics that I'm interested in having? And if it's something like a special mechanic, you need to test out that mechanic ahead of time before you even start building out your map. Back to the AI not working on blocking volumes thing that Taylor had brought up in his comment. one of the maps that I started building that I ended up abandoning at one point was supposed to be like this horror themed map where you were in like a haunted house or something. And I built up the entire house, like almost finished it with all, started doing all the custom geo first. And then I found out that demons don't navigate on top of blocking volumes that aren't connected to the floor. So that is something you need to know ahead of time. So when you're talking about putting in new mechanics into a map, definitely test out those mechanics first before you start building. It can save you a lot of time. I remember one time I started building this map for one of Z-Man's snapshot challenges, and it was going to be like a snowboarding map where you were like, sledding down a mountain basically. And I must have spent literally minutes on this map before I realized it was completely stupid. After like 5 or 10 minutes of messing around in the editor, I was like, yeah, this ain't happening. So it's always good if you realize you're going to have to abandon something, or there's a potential that you might have to abandon something. It's always best to figure that out ahead of time. You don't want to get far into a map before you realize that you don't have everything quite figured out. And especially, don't drag other people into it. And this is a thing I have to bring up. I'm not going to get into too much specifics on it. But I'm part of a collaboration right now on one map where I was brought in with one other person to do logic and geo and just build up this map. So the person with the vision of what this map was supposed to be, right? The person who brought us on board, who's supposed to have this sort of blueprint in his head of what this map's supposed to look like, brought us on board. We did our part, right? So the map is like 70% done. So we hand it back to the project lead, right? The director with the vision. Say, okay, the map is done. We've done our part. Now you can finish it. And then this guy that we're collabing with was basically like, nah, I'm not into Snapmap anymore. I'm done. You guys can finish it. But hey, if you finish it, let me know so I still want to play it. Wow, thank you. Essentially, the director walked off the set, and now we're sort of stuck trying to figure out what the hell we're going to do with this map. Because neither of us had a vision for it. We assumed that, this other person did. But he's headed towards Splitsville now. Yeah, so suffice to say, one of the next videos I'm going to have to make will be on the etiquette of Snapmap. But yeah, you would be surprised at how often people just abandon their maps because either lack of creativity, but in most cases I think it's just a lack of planning. So yeah, I always just, you got to have that vision in your head of what this map is going to be and where it's going to go. Because, boy, there are a lot of abandoned maps out there. That's about all I have to say about issues. Those are just some of the things I've sort of wrestled with and encountered and sort of ongoing challenges that I have doing Snapmap. For the most part, I mean, once you're familiar with the Snapmap editor, you sort of know what it can do, what it can't do, how basic logic functions. It's not too hard to navigate around things like that. As long as you're aware of it, you can take it into account. So if anybody has any issues that they'd like to share, like things that they really struggle with in Snapmap, go ahead and leave those in the comments. And that would definitely be helpful, especially if there's like a solution, like some like a time you did something in Snapmap and then you encountered a major roadblock and what maybe that roadblock was and how you overcame it. just sort of share that wisdom in the comments. And also, if you have any topic suggestions for another video, go ahead and leave those topics suggestions in the comments, and I'll be sure to get to them. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Until next time, peace out.